You're listening to Double Axe Handle Smash Podcast with your hosts, two guys you've never heard of. And now, the wrestling school dropout because he just couldn't take it anymore, Johnny O. And the man who was the last known Ludicrous Wrestling Federation champion, Metal Ed.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 4 of Double Axe Handle Smash Podcast. I am the last known LWF Ludicrous Wrestling Federation champion, Metal Ed, or as I'm known in Mexico, El Metal Edwin, and I'm here with
Johnny O.
Hey, why don't you just tell me you lost to a trash can?
Yeah, well, when I was younger, I really didn't have any neighbors around me. I lived on a farm in the woods, and I used to dive off my deck, onto trash cans, and I used to wrestle them. I even gave myself DDTs and took the DDT bump with the trash can, let the trash can win 1, 2, 3, and I even gave them the belt, the title, the championship, and the neighbors that were kind of in the distance on their porch having a 4th of July party, they were on their porch looking at me. They didn't know what to think of me. A couple times I heard the neighbor go, "Get him, get him, get him." I asked the neighbor about it. I'm like, "Hey, well, who are you talking to?" He was talking to their trash can.
The only person I know that can get a trash can over, Mr. Johnny O. My goodness. You know, it's funny because in my federation growing up, the LWF, which I can't even call it now because there is an LWF, there wasn't when I was growing up. The last known champion would have been my brother, but we implemented the 24-hour rule. And the 24-hour rule said it had to be a sanctioned match by one of the commissioners, him or I, and there had to be a sanctioned referee. I appointed myself the referee, and I went upstairs with a camcorder and turned on the light and whispered, "I hereby sanction myself as the official referee." And I put my hand over his sleeping chest and went, 1, 2, 3. And then I played it for him in the morning at breakfast. He was furious. And then we dissolved the federation because we grew up, kind of.
Was there only 2 people in your whole federation?
Oh, no. We had like 8 kids from the neighborhood. I would have won the world championship in the inaugural tournament, but I felt bad for my friend. I gave him the earthquake splash at Van Horn Park in Springfield, and he stopped breathing for a minute or two, so.
And if there's anybody who can pull off an earthquake splash, it's you.
Correct. I was like 14 at the time, and yeah, I jumped on his chest, and he stopped breathing for a sec, so I forfeited the match because my friend's well-being was more important. And the funny thing was that I was supposed to be a heel. What heel does that?
Remember, kids, don't try this stuff at home.
We never listened, but you should. So, John, what's on the agenda for today?
Today is the former NWA United States champion, former NWA television champion, the Russian Nightmare, Nikita Koloff.
Ruski Koshmar. That means Russian Nightmare in Russian. But before we get into the interview with the Russian Nightmare, you can follow us on Twitter at DAH_Smash. And if you follow us and give us a like, we'll give you a follow back. We're on Facebook at Double Axe Handle Smash. You can go to the website, DAHsmash.com. We're on all your favorite providers. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on Stitcher. We're on Deezer if you're listening abroad. Anywhere, mostly, that you can get your favorite podcast, you can find us. Double Axe Handle Smash Podcast. Johnny, you want to take this one away?
Yeah, so I want everyone to listen at the end of this episode. We're going to reveal who our next guest is coming up in 2 weeks. Nikita Koloff, you were born as Nelson Scott Simpson and grew up in Minnesota. Went to high school. Huh? Oh, no. Were you?
Didn't somebody tell? Somebody should have told me that. So,
well, the Wikipedia says it.
I'm sorry. Keep going, keep rolling. Right. You're good. Okay. I'm just busting your chops.
Oh, okay. You were born Nelson Scott Simpson and grew up in Minnesota and went to high school in Robbinsdale, where guys like Rick Rude, Kurt Hennig, Barry Darsow, John Nord, and Tom Zink all came out of and became famous pro wrestlers. You went to school with these guys. Were you friends with these guys at school, and did you already have a love for professional wrestling?
Well, it's a great. Thanks for having me on, by the way. I appreciate it. I just had to bust your chops. I'm like, wait a minute. How come nobody ever told me that? Hang on here. Hey, you want to hear something even funnier? I
thought you were from Russia.
Out in Texas this weekend, and I joke about being from Moscow, Minnesota. Somebody looked it up. I had no clue, but apparently there is an actual Moscow, Minnesota. And I had no clue. So anyway,
Wow.
There you go. But that said,
Right.
the other question I'm usually, not only was I friends with some of these guys, I mean, I'll use that term loosely. When you say, was I friends with some of these guys? Actually, Kurt Henning and Rick Rude graduated a year ahead of me. Barry Darso graduated, and Tom Sink. Well, Tom Sink, hold on. Brady Boone, Tom Sink, Henning, and Rude all graduated a year ahead of me. Barry Darso graduated a year after me. John Nord and I graduated together. And some would say, what's the deal with Robbinsdale High School? My answer to that is there's 10,000 lakes in Minnesota, so it must have been all the minerals in our water tower.
Something in the water, yeah.
Something in the water tower, yeah, in Robbinsdale. But and the other part of your question was, was I a fan of wrestling? And I honestly was not. I mean, I was aware of it. I mean, All-Star Wrestling, AWA, Vern Gagne, you flip through the three TV channels we have when we turn the dial. Some of your listeners probably don't know even what that means, but you have to get up off the couch and actually turn a television dial. I come across the AWA from time to time. And then in junior college, I was working out at a little sweatbox gym in North Minneapolis called Ventura's Gym. And so that was, if I had any interest in wrestling, it would have been getting to know Jesse Ventura and then, maybe following a little bit of his career, but no entertaining, no idea myself of ever entering into that profession.
It says on your Wikipedia that you went to college with Road Warrior Animal and Joe Laurinaitis, and he got you hooked up with Eddie Sharkey. How'd that end up happening?
Well, you can't believe everything you read on Wikipedia. Let's just start with that.
All right.
And it's awfully interesting because I didn't do that Wikipedia thing. I don't even know who does.
Okay.
I mean, Wikipedia can be edited by anybody, so that's why they tell you not to trust what it says.
Well, apparently so, because for the record, all right, let me back up. So I recruited Animal out of Irondale High School in New Brighton, Minnesota, to play college football. So let's start with that. So I recruited him. We became the best of friends. We played a couple years of college ball together. He ended up dropping out, and I went on to finish and graduate and get a degree. And in the midst of that timeline, he pops up on the Superstation WTBS Atlanta as a wrestler. And I was good friends with his family, his mom and dad, his brothers John and Mark, and so very close friends to the family, almost like you might say a prodigal son. So I do remember there were times when all of us either go watch the Superstation, go watch him on television. I was, happy for him. And then in turn, I guess turnabout's fair play. In turn, he would end up recruiting me into professional wrestling with a phone call. Eddie Sharkey, I'm guessing how his name is entered into the mix is because he did train a number of those guys, Rude, Henning, Darso, I think. I don't know how many he trained,
right?
But for the record, he did not train me because, and those who know my story, the day Animal called me, he gave me a phone number to a guy named Jim Crockett Jr. in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I called Mr. Crockett and said, and I made sure he understood this. Mr. Crockett, before I come to a town where I've never been and meet you face to face, you understand I have no amateur wrestling background, right? Yep. And you understand I have zero professional training. I've never hit a ring rope. He goes, yep. I go, you're okay with that? He goes, yep. I go, well, what's next? What's the next step? Be in my office on such and such a date with your head-shaped ball. I go, that's it? He goes, that's it. I go, okay, I'll see you then. So there's no cell phones, there's no selfies. I had a 5-minute conversation with Jim Crockett Jr., showed up at his office the day he said to be there. And he introduces me. I introduce myself to him. He introduces me to Ivan Koloff, Don Cornotto, the world tag team champions for the NWA. Nikita Koloff is born in the hallways of Charlotte that day. They put me right on the interview set. I'm on there for hours with those two guys. When we finished, he said, be in Raleigh, North Carolina tomorrow night. You're going to wrestle on television, having never been in a ring.
Wow.
We got there a little bit late. I think he started having second thoughts. Ivan still talking me to let me do it. Ivan believed in me without even really knowing me. And all Ivan said was, don't trip on the ropes, get into the ring. Apparently Crockett said if he tripped, I'm history. So that was in my mind. I'm like, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip. And they showed me a couple things in the dressing room. And 11 seconds later, I had my first win in professional wrestling. And as the old cliche goes, the rest is history.
Did they show you how to bump, take a fall so you wouldn't like hurt yourself?
The idea, well, no, but then again, I didn't need to because Crockett made it crystal clear. Not only the match only lasted 11 seconds, so I was just going to crush the guy, right?
Right.
And then after that, to give you a little more backstory, after that debut in the Dorton Arena, what Ivan and Don and I would do for the next 2-3 months is we get to the towns early. They would bump and thump all over the ring for 2-3 hours, teaching me the mechanics of wrestling. Mm-hmm. I'd have, again, a very short match. They'd have a world tag team match. I'd sit in their corner. Uncle Ivan would sit in my corner. And then every night on the way home, we would talk about the psychology of wrestling, old school wrestling, why they did what they did when they did it. And Jim Crockett gave very specific instructions that anyone and everyone that got in the ring with me, I was not to leave my feet. If I did, they would get fired. So they were building me, obviously, into be this Russian destroying machine, right?
What kind of shape were you in at that time?
Well, a little more backstory for your audience. When I graduated college, you asked me, did I dream of being a wrestler? I mean, my dream was professional football, which is why I played high school, college football. And I was scouted by the NFL my senior year. I had a couple setbacks in college where I had actually my freshman year. If your audience is familiar, years ago when Joe Theismann had suffered a fractured leg by Lawrence Taylor in a game, but you guys might remember that. More recently, their Alex Smith actually suffered a very identical fracture more recently. I suffered that my freshman year in college. I came back, rehabilitated, played 3 more years, only to fracture my other leg the same way. Mm-hmm. So 2 fractures. Training for a pro football tryout when Animal made that phone call. So the day I walked into Crockett's office, what he saw physique-wise, someone who was 285 pounds, 8% body fat with a 34-inch waist. That's what he saw. Lot of work. I mean, I was 8 hours a day in the gym. I wasn't working out 8 hours a day, but I was in the gym literally for 8 hours a day, insanely training for a pro football tryout when that phone call came.
So you're an American that debuts as the nephew of a Russian heel, Ivan Koloff. You have to put on a Russian accent. Did anybody from Russia ever come up to you and start speaking to you in Russian or anything like that? Was it difficult to maintain character all the time?
It was pretty easy initially. I'll tell you why. The part of the storyline was I didn't speak any English. So like even that first day of interviews, the day I was introduced to Jim Crockett or introduced myself to Jim Crockett, he said, take your shirt off. Ivan, put your chains around his neck. And you, every time they do an interview, you stand there, you don't say a word, look mean. I go, all right, I think I can do that. And so I didn't speak any English. I didn't speak anywhere outside of the car that I rode in with Ivan and Don, or in my own apartment on a phone call or something, anywhere in public. And many times in the dressing rooms, I just didn't talk to anybody. And so I had about a 6-month window. I got my hands on a Russian workbook where I learned how to sign my name in Russian. and a few phrases. I had a cassette tape that I'd pop in the player, and up and down the road to towns and back, I'd listen to this Russian cassette tape and learned a few words like Dядя is uncle in Russian, Dядя Ivan, Zhetoita, obviously Dasvadonya, Spokojной noches, good night. So just enough that I could say a Russian word here or there. And even when fans would try to talk to me, I never said a word to them. I mean, which got even more heat, right? Because they wanted me to talk or want to talk to me. They'd even ask Ivan, get him to say something. He goes, you get to say something, huh? And then what I did, guys, is over the course of those 6 months in my mind, I thought, if I really was from there, how would this word sound? How would that word sound? How would a sentence sound? And so I just worked on my own, from whenever it would debut that I would speak English, I just worked on that character to develop that. And for anyone who goes back and looks at some of the original stuff, I mean, it was a pretty thick, heavy accent. And a lot of fans used to say they recorded the show just to figure out what it was I was trying to say.
Do you have any road stories or ribbing stories from your time with Ivan and Don?
I mean, we weren't big about that. There were certain guys who were like, Rick Steiner, for example, was one of those guys. Ivan and Don and I mean, we were pretty much in my. I mean, we were all about business. We never really got into ribbing a lot of guys or pulling their leg. One, I didn't want it done back to me, so therefore I wasn't gonna do it.
So you eventually turned on Don. He was replaced by Crusher Khrushchev, Barry Darso. Three of you would become NWA six-man tag team champions and NWA World Tag Team champions. Is that right?
That is correct. Yep.
You're the evil Russian heels at the time. You guys were booed out of the building. You were beating on the likes of fan favorites like Dusty Rhodes and Manny Fernandez and the Rock and Roll Express. Describe how hot the NWA was at the time and what it took as a person to be a dastardly heel at the time in America.
Yeah, some have asked me, hey, did you ever parade, of fans? Because that was a different era, right? And the fans were pretty serious about wrestling. And it was a Cold War era, right? Russia was still, the Mother Russia was pretty hated in those days. And so there was no fear there. I'm in my 20s. When we're in our 20s, we're 10 foot tall and bulletproof, right? No fear. Who's gonna? I mean, I could stop a bullet, right? Yeah, right. But that's the mindset, right? You know what I'm saying? But interestingly, we had heat. It was not hard in any arena to get the fans chanting USA, 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 and so there was an occasional death threat, to Crockett's office. Hey, if the Koloff show up and tonight, we're going to kill him. He's like, we'll just beef up security. And I'm like, all right, whatever, And of course, there were 6 different times I had fans come over the barricade, come after me. And actually, the very first time it happened was the Great America Bash against Ric Flair. My first ever shot at the World Heavyweight title. And that's on. It's on film. So, people post every now and then. Some probably thought it was just part of the show, but it was not. And then the cops roll in, grab the guy. I didn't realize it, when this guy snatched me. I saw Flair down on the mat selling. I saw Ivan down on the floor and David Crockett, who was the referee. And in my mind, I'm like, who's grabbing me? Because there's Flair, there's Crockett, there's Ivan. It dawned on me, I go, oh my gosh, this must be a fan. And sure enough, that's what it was. And I would go on 5 more times that would happen. However, not another fan got his hands on me, because once it happened one time, then my antennas were up and I was looking for it after that. We had some heat.
I have a question about your rivalry with the Road Warriors. You guys got into a famous Russian chain match. Can you tell us about that? Can you talk to us about your memories of that particular style of match?
Well, we have more than one Russian chain. Russian chain matches in and of themselves could be pretty brutal. Like, believe it or not, because one, it's real chain. And I don't care how much you wrap that chain around your hand and try to control the length. You're throwing punches with it. Links are flying, loose pieces are flying around, or you wrap it around a guy's neck, or sometimes we'd wrap it around through a guy's mouth or whatever.
Yep.
And on retirement, I actually had some cosmetic surgery done to my teeth because those links would knock chips off of your teeth.
Wow.
And so the Warriors were in and of themselves without a chain were challenging enough to work with. I mean, great guys. Don't get me wrong, but just raw power.
They didn't like to sell too much, did they?
Well, like me, they didn't go off their feet too often either.
No.
So, which is what made for a great matchup, though.
Right.
And but the chain matches, whether it was against them or anyone else, which could be a very taxing match. So, but great memories against the Warriors. I mean, nothing but great memories, whether it was the chain matches, cage match, or any other match against them, and then eventually with them when the superpowers came together.
So tell us about your first title match with Ric Flair. How did that help you? Do you feel that he got you over? Do you feel that was maybe one of your best matches? How, in your mind, do you feel about your title match with the great Ric Flair?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I got the opportunity early in my career to work against. I mean, my first year. I mean, I had what we might know as squash matches those first few months, but quickly, as you already referred or mentioned, I became the world tag team champion, the world 6-man champion. Only 13 months in the business, I'm wrestling Ric Flair for the world heavyweight title, the first ever Great American Bash. Leading up to that, I'm in the ring with guys like Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Dory Funk Jr. I mean, guys who had Stan Hansen, Blackjack Mulligan. I mean, guys who were very schooled in the old art of wrestling that I had the chance, Rock and Roll Express, Mark and J. Youngblood. And so some very, very schooled guys who I feel fortunate I was able to learn from many of them. I always say this about Flair. Flair could make a broomstick look good because he made Nikita Koloff look good. I mean, he was that good that he could go in the ring with virtually anybody, no matter how much talent you had or didn't have. And he was going to have a good match because he just knew how to. He had the psychology, he had the charisma, and he knew how to get a match over. And so, to go to the ring that night, having never, and that was our first official match against each other. Really, the first time we really got our hands on each other. And kudos to him for helping to make my career, because I would go on to have, I don't even know how many matches I had against him, 100, 150. Wow. I don't know, a lot. I had a lot of matches against Rick. And I'm to this day very grateful that I had that opportunity to learn from him.
You also had a best of 7 series with Magnum TA. Just for the fans who don't know, Magnum TA was set to become a world champion himself, and he had a horrific car accident. What was it like to be in the ring with Magnum TA? Did you feel that this guy was something special when you were in the ring with him?
He was, for sure. I mean, and you're right. He was being groomed essentially to take Ric Flair's place. He was the whole package. I mean, he had the look, right? He had the all-American look, a bushy mustache, and the fans just loved him. They loved Magnum TA, or as I called him, Mega TA. But
I'm gonna ask you to do some accent.
Everybody does, but I got to. It's not as easy as it used to be. For the record, everybody goes, "Why don't you talk in the accent?" I'm like, "Because I'm not a spring chicken anymore. That's why." But Magnum, I mean, I feel, looking back, that we had some great chemistry with each other. Our styles were similar in that, we both agreed or liked to work what some would probably call stiff, we would call snug. In our world, our goal was to make our match look as believable as possible. And by the fans' account, I think we accomplished that. The best of 7 series, by far, is the most talked about of my wrestling career. I mean, we talk about the Flair matches, the Road Warrior matches, and a lot of the others. By far, the best of 7 is numero uno. And interestingly, had he not had that wreck where he broke his neck, I honestly don't know if the Russian Nightmare ever would have become a babyface. I could just see how, with the chemistry we had, he wins the world title, I'm the U.S. champion, and we go back and forth, for the world belt. We go for chain matches, flag versus flag. I mean, we could have went on for several years against each other.
What was it like for you to turn into a fan favorite and have fans cheer you? Surely the adrenaline rush gives you an indescribable feeling, and obviously being loved is better than being hated.
I am glad I got the opportunity to experience both sides. I am glad about that. And it was definitely very, very different. Now, I will say that you said, you'd rather be loved than hated. In that world in those days, actually I actually love to be hated, because if I wasn't hated as the bad guy, we're not drawn. Nobody's making any money, right?
Right.
So in one sense, there was a certain level of gratitude, if you want to say, or very thankful that the people hated me the way they did. That's what helped draw the crowd and make the money. That said, again, I'm glad I had experience on both sides of it. And I did not like one better than the other. I actually, enjoyed both. But it was that night we turned in Charlotte. Charlotte was if my career, we had some major. I mean, obviously the first Great American Bash was in Charlotte. My turn was in Charlotte. I won the match number 7 against Magnum in Charlotte. I mean, there was some big matches for me. So I'm very fond of Charlotte, which is why I kind of still even live in the area. But that night that I turned was the best word I could come up with was surreal. To see the fans who, even a month earlier, wrestling in that same building, let me know real quick I was number one, how much they hated me. I mean, throwing stuff at me, every night wherever I go, to do a 180. And I can recall, guys, I'm looking around the auditorium, and there's guys with their shirts off, and they're doing the most muscular pose, and they're chanting Nikita. I mean, to this day, my understanding that someone asked Tony Schiavone one time what the biggest pop in professional wrestling was that he was a part of. And he said the night Nikita Koloff turned babyface, which I think is a huge compliment. But yeah, that was a surreal night.
Well, before we get into our next question, there is something I do want to address with all of our listeners. You may be asking yourself, how did 2 guys we've never heard of get a podcast out there so quickly? Well, I'll tell you, we use Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout gets your podcast listed on all major podcasting networks. You'll get a great looking podcast website, audio players that you can drop into other websites, detailed analytics to see how people are listening, tools to promote your episodes, and much, much more. I can tell you personally that John is not the most technologically inclined person, and he sent a lot of emails, and they sent a lot of replies. They helped us get our episodes out there. Their responses were quick and detailed and helped somebody like John, who doesn't know a website from a web browser, to get our podcast up and running.
I used to wrestle trash cans.
Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world now. And by the way, if you follow the link in our show notes, that lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you. It gets you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, and it helps support our show. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners. The team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed, so let them. Go to www.buzzsprout.com to learn more. So fast forward a few months, and you drop the U.S. title to a young Lex Luger inside of a steel cage. You then go on to work with Tully Blanchard and win the World Television Championship. What was it like working with those two? How was Lex? We hear rumors that he was a little rough around the edges in the beginning. Can you elaborate and tell us what it was like to work with Lex Luger?
Well, for me personally, I joke, Lex and I do a lot together. I mean, we do a ministry called Man Camp where we co-facilitate. In fact, we just did one just recently, and we've done a lot of ministry together, and just really have a great, I feel, a great relationship. In fact, in 2015, he lived with me for about 10 months, and so I joke about this, but it's kind of a joke, but it's not. But I've said it in front of him. I'm probably one of the few guys that actually liked Lex back in those days. He was not the easiest guy to get along with, and there were a lot of guys just thought, he was the narcissist character to his own admission. That was probably not far from the truth as to who he was. I mean, Lex was all about Lex. That's just the way it was. But I got along with him well. I felt, and I felt we had good camaraderie outside of the ring. We would travel together some, and inside the ring, I felt we had, because of his physique and my physique, that we had some good chemistry. Depending on who you are, some would maybe say we didn't have the best of matches, but I thought, every night we went in there, I thought we gave the people their money's worth and gave them a good show. And then in terms of working with Lex, Tully was a completely different style, of course. But Tully was one of the best ring psychologists. I mean, again, I was so fortunate to work with so many amazing guys. Especially when you look at the Four Horsemen: Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, originally Ole Anderson, and Flair. And later Lex becoming part of the Four Horsemen. I got to work with some great guys. I mean, Arn and Tully, great ring psychologists. It was a night off for me. All I had to do is go in there and just listen. And I knew I felt gonna be a good match. So Tully, a complete different style, but again, one of the best ring psychologists that I worked with. So two different styles, but felt I had good matches with both.
Oh, okay. Bill Watt, UWF was merged with Jim Crockett Promotions at one point, and Terry Taylor had the UWF TV title, and you had the NWA TV title, and you guys had a unification match, which you came out on top. And so how was it when the UWF guys came in? Were they looked on as enemies, even though it was a agreed thing that they would all be coming in? Did a lot of people have issues with them? UWF guys?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, we, as far as I know, or at least I can speak for myself, I embraced the guys with open arms. I mean, my mindset, understand, when I broke into wrestling, because I wasn't a fan of wrestling growing up, it was a business for me. I mean, I was there to make money, and so whatever I thought, whatever could enhance what we were already doing, and it could make money for all of us, then why not embrace that? So, and there was some good talent. Terry Taylor was a great talent. We did that. I've had fans say, many fans say, that unification match at Starrcade in '87, in their view, was a great match. They felt, and I felt that it was a great match. And Terry was a great guy to work with. The other guys that came in, Sting, right? He came over. The Fantastics, Tommy Rogers, Bobby Fulton. I mean, there was some really good talent that came aboard, and I feel it only enhanced our territory to have those guys in our territory.
Right. You did take some time off around this time, or a little shortly after this time. You were a little leaner. They had you grow your hair a little bit. They said you were taking care of your wife. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. For those who aren't aware, I had a late wife. I mean, she was 24 when she was diagnosed with cancer, and she battled it for 2 years. She passed it at age 26.
Wow, I'm sorry.
I appreciate it, and it's part of life. I mean, there's reality is death is as much a part of life is a part of life, right? And so it was an eye opener for me personally at how short life could be. I mean, age 20, age 24, age 26, she passes. So no promise of tomorrow is what I learned from that. None of us are guaranteed, that we're going to live forever or live for 100 years or 80 or whatever else.
Right.
And so what had happened is she'd been diagnosed with cancer. She went through the whole battery of chemotherapy and radiation and, losing all of her hair. And she was a very beautiful woman. And of course that was very challenging, for her. And it went into remission. And then shortly thereafter, it came back with full vengeance. And it was at that time that I went up into the Ivory Tower in Atlanta, as we called it, and talked to the guys and said, hey, I am stepping away for a while to take care of my wife. I'm main event, right? I'm main event, guy at this point. I'm a top slot. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I walked away from that meeting with feeling like they were not happy with that. Like, what? Wait a minute, wrestling's not your first priority. I'm like, no, a wife who's got cancer and on the verge of dying is the first priority.
Right.
And so I respectfully stepped away. I told him I would be back and go, hey, I'll come back, but she's a priority. I'm going to take care of my wife. And so that's what I did. And
were you losing your love for doing what you were doing?
No. I mean, it's what I did for a living, and it's just in my mind, that had to be the number one priority, was take care of her. And you talked about the losing the weight and the hair. I mean, that was all intentional, actually, on my part. So, I trimmed down, I leaned down. The hair thing, I'll tell you the quick story on the hair thing. They didn't ask me to do that. That was my creation, my idea. And how that came about was, for those who maybe don't know, I screen test for Ivan Drago for Rocky IV with Sylvester Stallone. It was Dolph Lundgren, myself on the set. It really came down to between the two of us as to who would land that role. And obviously I didn't land it. Lundgren did. And then when I saw the movie and saw the character and saw the haircut, I thought, that kind of looks cool. And I could maybe play off the popularity of Rocky IV.
Yeah.
And so I came to those guys, go, I'm going to grow my hair up. I'm going to do this crew cut thing and, whatever. So that all stemmed from the Rocky IV movie and having tried out for that character. Now, looking back, probably something I wouldn't have done looking back. But hey, tried it. That's why I eventually shaved it again and ended my career with this bald look.
Well, at this time, now again, we already know Wikipedia can be wrong, but your Wikipedia page does say at this time you stopped taking steroids at this time. Do you want to talk about steroids and how it affected you and why did you stop?
I actually stopped taking steroids probably about a year into the wrestling business. And just to give some backstory on that, go back to my college days. Let's go back to my college days. We talked about those. The word let's just say it this way. The word on the street was, if you want to play professional football for my position, by the way, I played tight end in college. I loved catching the ball. A guy by the name of Paul Kaufman for the Green Bay Packers was one of my role models. Russ Francis with the New England Patriots and Dave Casper with the Oakland Raiders. They were kind of my role models. And Kaufman actually was about my size. Kaufman was 6'2", about 245, 50 pounds. One of the smaller tight ends for NFL standards, but was making it. And that became my motivation. But the word was, if you want to play at that level, then that's what you have to do. So I'm like, well, my passion, it's my love. I want to play at that level. And so that's why I initially started using steroids. Now, for the record, I'm not an advocate of steroid use. Would never tell somebody to go do it ever. Looking back, now it's got a fancy name, performance enhancement, right?
Right.
Yeah.
PE, whatever they call, right? Performance enhancers or whatever. Anyway, here's the reality. I got results from them. And I was on that path to playing professional football when I got the call for wrestling. And so that first year, when my career took off like it did, and by the way, I'm a by the books kind of guy typically. So what I mean by that is, I never, if you want to see, let's use the word abuse. I never abused them. And I always used them according to doctor recommendation. And yes, there were doctors that would prescribe them. And so I was just that guy. I never abused them, and I always used them the way it was recommended to use them. And I feel fortunate that was my mentality and my attitude. And when my career took off the way it did, it was at a certain point where I just felt like I don't need those anymore. I mean, my career's already locked in and it's solid. And from a longevity perspective, I knew that they could cause problems down the road when you got to be the age I am now. And so again, I made an executive decision to say, I'm done, don't need them anymore. I'll eat right, work out hard. And that's what I did for the remainder of my career.
Man, we appreciate you opening up about that. You didn't have to. That was very honest. And, a lot of guys get offended or upset when you ask them about it, but we thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yeah. And let me say this, just for your audience. I mean, it's not just wrestlers. I mean, professional athletes in every sport. Well, I don't guess I can say every sport, but many of the sports, many of the competitive professional sports, in some way, shape, or form, have used steroids. That's just the reality of it. Now, so just for your audience to understand, it's not just wrestlers. I mean, you go through football, you go through baseball. I mean, you just go through them all. So anyway.
Right.
So we open up the show. He's talking about your birth name, but that's not your name anymore.
It's not. That's why he shocked me. I hadn't heard that name in like 35 years,
So you changed your name legally to Nikita, yes?
I did. My children, when they were born, they were Koloffs. In fact, one still is. Now she's getting married soon, so she'll no longer be a Koloff. But yeah, hey, you want to hear how crazy I was? Like for real? Like on one of my daughter's birth certificates, like it says on her birth certificate, when they ask for the dad's birthplace, it says Lithuania. I don't know how I'm ever going to get that changed or if I need to, but on her birth certificate, it says Lithuania. Crazy. So how crazy is that?
You're hardcore.
So you just changed your name.
Man.
You just changed your name for the sake of changing your name.
And I wasn't asked to do it. I did it on my own. I thought if I'm going to get this character over, I'm developing an accent. I'm learning how to sign my name in Russian, a few words and phrases, and hey, I might get stopped one day, and it probably looked good on the driver's license. The cop goes, "Wow, he really is Nikita." Hey guys, my mailbox. I had a subscription to Pravda magazine. You ever heard of that?
I have heard of Pravda magazine. Yes.
It was a Russian propaganda magazine.
Yeah.
I had a subscription so the mailman would think this dude's really Russian.
So you really got into the character. That's great.
Did your family give were your parents are still alive? I mean, did they give you crap for changing your name or anything?
No, they gave me their blessing. I mean, I just explained to them. I go, here's the deal. Here's why I'm doing it. In fact, when I used to go back to Minneapolis, I'd tell my sister or someone, like I go, hey, if we go out to eat, I will just understand, I will be in character. I won't be talking like this. I'll be in character at the restaurant, order my meal or anywhere else we're at.
Do you have any stories about that? About being out in public in character?
Well, you guys had asked earlier. I guess I addressed it. Did Russian people ever try to talk to me or whatever? Yeah, two quick stories. One was when I was still early on. I was a heel. I was shopping for groceries in Charlotte, and I'm picking some fruit, and all of a sudden I hear this fluent Russian, and I turn to look. It's like a kid who works at the grocery store, and I look at him. Now I'm speaking English at this point. I look at him, and he looks at me and says something else in Russian. I go, "We in." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And he starts speaking some broken English, but I'm a heel, so I just look at him and go, I just kind of growl him and walk away. Fast forward, And this is crazy, right? Like you guys, Wikipedia, Google, fast forward a couple years ago, and Luger and I are doing an autograph signing in Virginia. And I hear this woman speak fluent Russian. I'm like, oh, dear Lord, here we go again. I'm like, why don't they know by now I'm not from Russia, right? And I kind of ignore her, think she's going to go away. And she does. She says something else in fluent Russian. Fine. I look up and I make eye contact with her. And she's glowing. I mean, she's glowing. She says something else in Russian. Got a little kid with her. And I look, I go, ma'am. I go, I'm not really from Russia. And she goes from a glow to a scowl. Like, what? You're not really from Russia? And I'm like, ma'am.
Broke her heart.
I did. I'm like, ma'am, it was just a character that I portrayed. She goes, I drove 3 hours here to meet you, and her hero, and you're not really. I mean, she was so mad she never did get an autograph. Poor kid that was with her. She drives 3 hours home without an autograph. 6 hours in the car. So anyway, so yeah, that's a couple Russian stories there.
Before I forget, I do have a funny story for you, and it pertains to you. I had to do a final project in my introduction to media class, and the subject was the correlation between real-life events and the media. And of course, I chose wrestling. I bring up the fact of you and Ivan, and I said, one of the things I said was it might have broke people's perception of reality to realize Nikita was from America. Ivan was from Canada. Neither of these guys were Russian, but they used, the Russian Cold War stuff to get this stuff over, and I actually got an A+ on that because I really did my homework, and I brought the reality of using wrestling and the real world events to get heat in the wrestling business. And it was such well done. I wish I still had it so I could quote it, but
oh my gosh, what'd you do with it, bro? You don't have it.
I switched computers and lost all my stuff.
Yeah, we could have had you sign an autograph on it. We could have been worth the millions,
Exactly. Now, for the record, Ivan was much closer to Mother Russia than I was. Vancouver, Canada is much closer than Moscow, Minnesota. So
right. You get into a feud with Ravishing Rick Rude for the WCW United States Championship, and at Halloween Havoc '92, you fought Vader, who was defending the title for Rick Rude. And in your match with Vader, it was said that a clothesline from Vader injured you and herniated the disc in your neck, and that's when you had to retire. Is that true? And let's elaborate on that.
Partially true.
Okay.
Vader had a history of being reckless.
Yep.
I mean, that's no secret.
Yeah, everyone knows that. Yeah.
He had a history of being reckless, and he did injure me. Not at Halloween Havoc. It would happen just maybe about a week later. So it actually November 7th, 1992 in Winston-Salem in a house show. And we were fighting out on the floor, and I didn't know he took a running clothesline me in the back of my neck. My left arm went limp for about 3 or 4 minutes, and I'm fighting with one arm. And eventually I got feeling back in my arm and all that. We finished the match. And then it wouldn't be till the next day. I mean, I did report that injury, and it wouldn't be till the next day that I'm out of my lower abdomen. I'm like, man, I hurt. So I get my neck checked. I get that checked. And they go like, oh, you got a hernia. Because, he's a legit 450, 500 pounds, right?
Yeah.
So I got a hernia picking him up for body slam. And so I had the hernia surgery. I had my neck checked out, everything up to an MRI neurosurgeon. And he said, it's not career ending. You do have a lot going on there in the base of your neck between arthritis and, deteriorating disc. And so I'm like, okay. And so I'm rehabilitating the surgery for my hernia, rehabilitating my neck. And when the day I broke in, remember I said, it was a business for me. I told Ivan and Don, the day I broke in, I'd be retired out of professional wrestling by the time I'm 35, out of in-ring wrestling. There was a goal of mine. Walk away on top of the business.
Yep.
Walk away on top as a champion or, main event, right? Walk away on top. And so I was getting ready to turn 34. And I thought, well, by the time I go back in the ring, what are we going to wrestle another 6-9 months or so or whatever? I'm like, I'm done. Right. So I just made the executive decision again to hang it up and walk away under my own terms and never look back with no regrets. And so, yes, he injured me, not at Halloween Havoc, but it wasn't career ending. I made that decision.
All right, one more thing before we get to the rapid fire questions. The last thing, after you retired from wrestling, you found God, you found your faith. Do you want to talk about that and how it impacted your life then and how it impacts your life now?
Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. I really do. And I mean, it's an important part of my life journey at this point, the most important part. The shorter version of that, and for all your, for your audience, they could go to koloff.net. They can read more about it. I mean, I just did a brand new updated version of my book, Nikita, A Tale of the Ring and Redemption, where they can read the full story up to present day. That's brand new, hot off the press, with several new chapters and more new pictures and stuff in that. There's a couple books in there. There's a store on that they can order that from on Koloff.net. And so I leave wrestling. I'm successful, but I'm unfulfilled. And it's during an 11th month journey there that I end up at an altar in a church service, 17 October 1993. For me, it's what I call my aha moment. Didn't grow up in church, just like I didn't grow up in Russia, but I knew the stories. I heard the stories of Jesus, and how he had, sacrificed his life on a cross for all of us, for our sins. And I knew the story, and it just never made the 18-inch trip from my head down to my heart. And that day in October 1993, it made that trip. And, I opened up my heart, invited him in. Life has never been the same since then. The last 28 plus years, little did I ever know that I'd now be traveling the world, now 30 different countries, preached in 1,200 plus or minus churches. I mentioned Lex Luger and I co-facilitate a camp called Man Camp together. They can click a link on that same website to learn more about that. All the guys out there, if they ever have an interest in attending camp with Lex and I, we do one in the spring, one in the fall. Our next one will be in October. I just that's where my heart is now. That's where my passion is. One, to see men, be fully equipped to be godly men, godly husbands, and godly fathers. That's part of my passion now. I'm still, on that path of pursuit myself. And it's just been an amazing journey. So I look back at my life, guys. I never dreamed of being a wrestler, but I became one. And I feel fortunate and blessed to have the career I had. I never in a million years ever thought I'd be an evangelist, a minister, a missionary. But yet God gave me that wrestling platform, I believe, as training ground for what I do now. I'll kind of summarize by saying this. Here's what I did in wrestling. I flew on airplanes, I rented cars, I stayed in hotels, I talked on microphones in front of cameras, entertaining crowds for a living. Well, I look at the last 28 years since making that decision to surrender my heart to Jesus. What have I been doing? I know. I've been flying on airplanes, renting cars, staying in hotels, talking on microphones in front of cameras, not to entertain crowds, but to bring a much more, in my world, important message. And that's the gospel message of just like my life, Lex Luger, Sting, Road Warrior Hawk, Uncle Ivan, Shawn Michaels, and a number of other guys realized no matter how successful you become, it's all vanity, vanity, vanity. Without a personal relationship with Jesus, you're always going to be chasing after the next dollar or chasing after the bling, because you're always going to be unsuccessful. You might be successful, but you're always going to be unfulfilled until you surrender your life to Jesus. That's
Amen.
The story in a nutshell.
Amen.
Wow.
All right, so we got some rapid fire questions for you before you leave. Like, that's going to be our little shtick from here going forward.
You can do one answer. You can do two answers. You can, whatever you want to do.
I'll do my best.
So what's your favorite food?
Favorite food. It could be anything, right? Cheesecake.
Cheesecake.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Favorite opponent that you faced?
Oh my gosh, come on now. That's not even fair,
You
man.
can name a few. You can name a few.
My favorite opponent. Okay, here you go. Best of 7 against Magnum TA. First ever match against Flair in the Great American Bash. 4 games, Superpowers, Dusty Rhodes, Nikita, Koloff, the Road Warriors, Paul Ellering against the 4 Horsemen with J.J. Dillon.
Favorite restaurant?
Ooh, favorite restaurant. Man. Believe it or not, it used to be. It's not so much a restaurant as much as the finer cuisine. Really adapt a taste for some of the finer meals. Like a Ruth Chris Steakhouse, something of that nature.
I thought you were going to say Russian food.
Russian dressing. That's my favorite.
Right.
All right. So, safest finisher you've ever taken?
The safest one?
Yes.
The safest one. Wow.
Like say for example, the Undertaker gives the Tombstone Pile Driver, and Undertaker's very safe with that Tombstone Pile Driver. So who would you say would be a safe a move that looks really bad, or is something that's unsafe, but somebody that performs it really well?
Hey, let me flip it around and tell you this. We talked about Vader and how reckless he was.
Yeah.
There's one thing he wasn't going to do. I mean, that was his finish. I go, dude, you can come up with anything else you want, but that ain't happening with the Russian Nightmare. Not happening because it was not safe. How about that?
Well, the next question was least favorite finisher to take.
But you just answered that.
So there's your least favorite. How about this? The figure forward Ric Flair. That was my safest.
Okay. Was there anyone from your era you wish you got to wrestle, but you didn't?
Well, the magazines always touted the whole Hulk Hogan, Nikita Koloff, WrestleMania. It would have been fun to square it up with Hogan. I think we could have squared off well and drew some money and entertained the fans.
That would have been great to watch.
How about your least favorite opponent? Would that be Vader again?
No, I mean, listen, there were certain guys that I just didn't allow them to do certain things, and I could still have a good match. I feel I had good matches against Vader. There was just certain things I was like, dude, you're just not doing that on me. We'll figure something else out. Still have a good match. You know what? Honestly, overall, I think the majority of guys, and I've even forgotten some of the guys I've been in the ring with, like Diamond Dallas Page and Stone Cold Austin and Cactus Jack and so many others. But Stan Hansen was the most reckless. When he took his glasses off, he was blind as a bat, couldn't see a hand in front of his face. So he was probably the least, the one I enjoyed wrestling the least.
That's another one that didn't leave his feet there that often.
That's right. That's right.
All right. I didn't write this. He did. So, but I'm going to ask it. What do you like on your pizza?
I'm a cheese pizza guy. Like cheese. Now Luger turned me on to a Jets pizza that has the thick 4-8 crusted whatever they call it with all the meats, the meat lovers meats, and barbecue sauce with extra cheese and a extra crispy crust. It is the bomb.
I got to talk to that guy. Thank you very much. We're very honored to have you here. I really appreciate this. This was just really, I mean, I am starstruck as well.
He's being a mark.
I'm being a mark. Sorry.
Hey, and it's okay. I'm a mark. Hey, we're all, to some level, we're all marks. Let's just be honest. We're all marks. So,
but Nikita Koloff, it has been wonderful. It's been a pleasure. God bless you, my friend. Thanks for coming on our podcast.
Hey, God bless you guys. I wish you well on your podcast. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for letting me share some of my story, guys.
Well, that's going to wrap up our interview with the Russian Nightmare, Nikita Koloff. Thank you so much for listening, John.
We want to thank Nikita Koloff for his time. We appreciate the interview.
So remember at the beginning when you're talking about how you used to put trash cans over?
Yeah, wrestle trash cans in my backyard.
Well, I think I got a tag team partner for you.
You mean next week's guest?
Next week's guest.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I think I'm thinking what you're thinking, and I'm thinking we're all thinking at the same time.
Duke the Dumpster Drosy.
Next time on the Double Axe Smash
podcast.